In this video, we're going to look at creating a PPC lead generation funnel. Having a progressive funnel allows the hottest leads to move at their own pace, while normal leads can be nurtured and bubbled up over time. Pay-per-click, or PPC, can be very expensive, but those costs can be minimized over time using a progressive funnel. In this video, we're going to pretend we're a service-based company like a plumbing business that's running PPC ads so people can request a service call. So in this video, we're going to look at creating a call preferences form, chaining that to a phone collection form, and then chaining that to an email collection form. We're going to start by laying out our chain of goals. A second form to get the phone, and then at the very end of the chain, a third one to collect the time of day that they prefer. We're going to have sequences between each of these. And at the end of the chain, we're ultimately going to have two tasks. We're going to start with one, though, and then just duplicate it to save ourselves some time. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at the end of the funnel and building our way backwards just to save ourselves some steps. So for this form at the end of the chain, all we need is a hidden email field, and a radio button offering somebody the time of day they would prefer to be called. And we will make this required. And we're going to adjust the call to action to be more relevant to what they're doing. And then we're going to provide the context that has been stepping them through this entire time. Chunk out the copy at prefer in this case. Okay. So we're going to quickly configure our thank you page. And we're going to put the first person's phone number in here. So they just told us what time of day they wanted to be called at and said, we'll give you a call at this number then. Okay. So at this point, the form is ready. What we need to do is go ahead and grab the URL of this hosted form, and we're going to go ahead and use that when we chain it to the second one. So under here, under the Code tab, we are going to copy this address. Now we can mark this form as ready. We're going to configure the tasks in a second, but before we forget, we're going to set the thank you page of the second step as the third step in the web form. We're just chaining these together. So there's technically two options, a morning call and an afternoon call. So we're going to build the morning call and then just clone it. So drag out a task and let's open it up. And this is a call type, and this is a hot PPC lead because they made it all the way to the end of the funnel. They made it through all three steps. And now we provide context to the end user. We want to make sure we assign a backup user and a priority. I'd say this is definitely critical. And now we can mark this as ready. We can also now mark the sequence as ready. In the real world, you may want to also have some other things such as an email or some tagging, things like that. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to right click and duplicate this because we just need an afternoon version of this task. Now the key here, and we're going to have to go back to the other one, is making sure we set the time. So we're going to say this task is for 1 p.m. because they wanted to be called in the afternoon. And that's all we need to do, by the way. Again, the task is the same effectively, so that's why we did it first and then just cloned it. We're going to mark the sequence as ready. Let's remember to set an actual time on this one. So this was a morning call. Okay. So now let's go ahead and connect our web form to these two sequences, and we're going to go configure this decision node. Remember, we had the radio button, which we can now use in our decision node. So if the form submission of option morning is selected, then they go into the high priority morning call task. And conversely, if the option of the best time to call is in the afternoon, they go there. So now we're going to continue building out the chain here. So in the phone 2 collection, this is where they're going to show up after they give us their initial name and email. So again, we just need a hidden email field. A phone field. Of course, make this required. And again, changing the call to action to be more relevant to the action they're taking, which is, of course, it's a phone number. Please call me. And again, providing them just a little bit of context, letting them know they're in the right place. Alright, and at this point, this form is ready to go. It's just collecting a phone number, and the thank you page is already set to the third form, so we're going to go ahead and grab the hosted version of part 2, just like we did with the other one, and we're going to set that as a thank you page in part 1. So this is the entry point to our funnel. And remember, we're using the example of like a service provider, like a carpet cleaner or something like that. So in real life, this may be a full-blown landing page. This is something that we're building that you could just inject into an existing page. And so if we were driving PPC traffic, this would definitely want to be like a full-blown landing page. But this function of the form may just be something you want to pop in there. Right, first name and email, and then proceed to step 2, scheduling. So we're framing what the next steps are. We're letting them know that, hey, there's another step after this. So on our thank you page, again, we want to make sure that we are going to part 2 and passing the person's contact info. I'm going to double check and make sure we did this on part 2. And we did, okay. So now this form is ready to go. And the last is filling in these bits here. So we're going to fill in the task real quick. And instead of creating a task immediately, what we're actually going to do is place a delay timer in between this. Because this is the fallout from part 1 to part 2, pardon me, part 2 to part 3. So if they give us a phone number but they never tell us what time of day they want to be contacted, then this is going to kick into gear. And I think 10 minutes is sufficient amount of time for someone to choose whether or not they want to be contacted in the morning or the evening or the afternoon or whatever it is that you set the time for. So this is basically the same as the other task. It's just a regular PPC lead. They're not hot. They didn't tell us what time of day they want to be contacted. And in this case, we're actually going to set this as essential. Since they didn't give us our preference, we don't want to necessarily call them first. And we make sure we select a backup user, and now we can mark this task as ready. And we can mark this as ready. Now at this point, we do have their email address, so again, in the real world, you may have some other things here, possibly an email trying to recover that, or, you know, dripping them into a welcome. So now at this point, everything's ready to go except this phone abandoned, and this is going to be an email in here that's driving them to provide their phone number. So we have to publish this web form first, so it'll show up in our available list of things to link to. So we're going to publish this real quick. And just like with the part 2 to part 3 abandon, we want to have a short delay here, and we'll give people some time to give us their phone number. And if not, then we want to send a recovery email here. So this will be a simple transactional email in this case. and it's purely functional. The idea is just to get people back to providing their phone number so we can call them. So, hey contact, first name, are you still interested in a service call? Remember, that's kind of the context we're using here, some home-based service. If so, I need to know the best number to call you. Could you please click here and share your phone number? I'll give you a call ASAP, or we will give you a call, whatever your tone is, as soon as that happens. Have a great day of the week. And then since this is coming from the owner, we'll have it sign off as the owner. There you go. And we can adjust the unsubscribe link text a little bit to make it not so mechanical feeling. Now the last part is to link to that part 2 form that we had just created. So we're looking for our web forms and part 2, step 2 phone collection. There you go. So now at this point we can mark this email is ready. And now we can mark the sequence is ready. And again, in real life, depending on the cost per lead, you may want to add some additional recovery emails in here. And all we would have to do is publish this and start driving PPC ads to this web form. So when somebody clicks through the PPC ad, they can begin requesting a service call by submitting their name and email. The next page asks for their phone number, and the last page asks for their time of day preference. When someone goes through all 3 steps, a higher priority task is created to show up on the calendar at either 8 a.m. or 1 p.m. If somebody only provides their phone number, a task is created to call them, and if someone doesn't submit their phone number initially, a reminder email will automatically go out, driving them back to share their phone number. So as I've mentioned, although this model is functional, in real life, we would intentionally design all forms and steps to match the brand and the voice, especially when it comes to a PPC ad. The look and feel of the ad image must match the first step's look and feel for optimal conversions. The visitor should have no doubt they are in the right place after clicking. And I'll point it out again, we built backwards so that way we could minimize the clicking back and forth between web forms. Don't necessarily leave a dead end at the end of the Step 3 thank you page. This could be easily extended to an order form for a one-time offer, a social media nudge, or something like a newsletter opt-in. Remember that we can also add and remove form fields based on our needs, but the first step should always just collect a name and an email, as this is the minimum required for follow-up. We can collect all the other information we want in future forms. And if anything, we can add a third question on the first step that begins segmenting the visitor, such as the service type request. In the next video, at the beginning of the next course, we're going to talk about setting up your merchant account.